Hello everybody, it's been a little while but I'm back, and this week I'll be dropping videos every day looking at all of the figures in the recent Marvel Legends Secret Wars wave. Now, it's hard to believe it's been 40 years since Secret Wars launched. For those of you who know their comic book history, the 12-issue Secret Wars event was an experimental, albeit crass, marketing ploy to increase toy sales in the early 1980s. But regardless of how you feel about the business side of things, the event was very successful and actually made quite a big contribution to the ongoing narrative of the Marvel Universe. It did, for example, feature the debut of Spidey's alien costume, which would ultimately bear interesting fruit in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man long after the event. And that's not even considering the toys themselves, which were really fun. I used to play with my brother's Secret Wars toys when I was a kid, and I loved these figures. We even had the Secret Wars base, which provided hours of entertainment. Looking back, the figures certainly look a little dated, and the choices for the toy line were sometimes at odds with the actual event itself, featuring characters who never appeared in the series and missing some key characters like the Beyonder who did. Anyway, I digress. To celebrate the 40th anniversary of Secret Wars, Hasbro have dedicated an entire wave of Marvel Legends figures to this series. And today, I'm going to start off by taking a look at Iron Man. So the first thing to comment on, of course, is the packaging, and anyone who grew up collecting the original Secret Wars toys will definitely appreciate the retro card that we see here, because of course it is basically the same artwork but writ large, and this definitely takes me back to a happy place. And whilst there's not an awful lot actually going on in the background of this packaging, it's still eminently very displayable because it's so colourful and it's really evocative with that lightning storm that's happening in the background there. Now, if we flip the packaging and look at the reverse, we can see some newly commissioned artwork of the character, a little bit of bio at the top of the packaging there. We can see the other figures available in the wave, again replicating the style of the original Secret Wars toy line, and then we even have some instructions about how to change the holographic shield around. So, moving on to the figure itself, we've had plenty of Iron Men before, and we've had plenty of classic Iron Men before. So, is there anything particularly new or original about this one? Well, for the most part, it is simply recycling previous molds, and I may be mistaken on this, but I feel as if the head sculpt is new. I'm not sure I've quite seen this variant of the faceplate before. Now, I could be wrong. We've had thousands of Iron Men across recent years, and they do all tend to bleed into one after a while, but I think this is a new variant. The rest of the body looks to have been recycled to my eyes. Again, we're not seeing any paint washes on here, which is a real shame because I think the detail and the sculpting is actually top notch, and I just think, a little bit of paint, a little bit of a wash here and there would just draw out those details. What we do have that's quite nice is that on the central chest unit there, where it's bright blue, they've actually got a couple of points of white on there to make it look like light is reflecting off it, which works an absolute treat, and it's little details like that that make all the difference. I just wish they'd roll this out to the rest of the figure. When we look at the boots, there's nothing really to comment on here, of course. He's got a nice wide surface area, so he has no problem standing, and in this guise at least, he's a solid performer. That changes a little bit when we look at the roller skates, but we'll come to that a little bit later. In terms of articulation, Iron Man is pretty standard for Marvel Legends. He's got the ball joint at the top of the neck there, the head can rotate all the way around, it can kind of wobble left and right, but he can certainly nod his head up and down thanks to that hinge there, and that can move a good distance. He's got ball joints in the shoulders, so the arms lift up and out. Of course, there's the complementary bicep swivel there, and he's got a double joint at the elbow, so that hand can go all the way back to his head there, although mine's a little bit stiff, and because of the top of the gauntlet there, you might have a little bit of difficulty getting it all the way back. Now, it does have a standard pin swivel at the wrist, the hand can rotate all the way around, and of course it will hinge forwards and backwards as well. He's got a standard swivel at the waist, so of course he can move from side to side, and then he also has an ab crunch in the centre of the chest there that will allow him to bend forwards and backwards. Although I wasn't really able to get the range of motion out of this I was hoping for. It does go forwards and backwards, just not as much as I would have liked to have seen. Now, he's got ball joints in the hips, of course, the legs will kick out to the side, there is that upper thigh swivel there as well, the legs will kick forwards, they'll kick backwards, there's a double jointed knee, so that lower leg will kick all the way back, and let's not forget there's another swivel at the top of the boot cut here as well, allowing that lower leg to move from side to side, before we move on to the ankle pivot, where of course that foot can hinge forwards and backwards, and rock from side to side. In terms of accessories, Iron Man probably performs the best out of all the figures in this wave. He comes with an additional 3 hands, 2 repulsor blast hands and 1 gripping hand, 2 repulsor blast effects, which we've seen before, 2 smoke effects, again, we've seen these before, 2 roller skates, and this is the first time we've seen this on a Marvel Legends figure, this laser weapon gun thing, which I don't think actually appears in Secret Wars at all. It was purely an invention for the original toy line. Nice to see it replicated here. And then finally we have the holographic shield. Both the repulsor blast and the smoke effects are really fun. They easily just slot into the peg holes on the hands there, and they look very effective. Yes, we've had them before, but they work so well, why not include them again? And of course, they can also be utilized on this blaster gun thing that Iron Man comes with. You can have these both barrels firing, or you can have them smoking, or a combination of the two. Of course, he has no issues holding this gun. It's a little bit strange. I'm not sure why Iron Man needs it, but hey, it was definitely an invention of the 80s, and I'm really glad to see it writ large here for the 6-inch line. As for the roller skates, well, we've never seen them on an Iron Man figure before, and I believe we've only ever had them on one other Marvel Legends figure, which was Dazzler a few years ago. Here, they don't work quite so well, in my opinion. They do just peg into the sole of his boot, but for me, the joint wasn't particularly tight, especially if you look at the right foot here. We can see there's a little bit of a gap there. I had great difficulty making this fit into the peg hole and just sitting securely. It just wants to pop out all the time, which makes posing incredibly difficult. And just more generally, the roller skates themselves just tend to throw the figure off balance. So even if this was a really nice, secure, tight fit, and this was all molded into the foot, you're going to have difficulties posing this Iron Man because it definitely throws off the balance of the figure. And ultimately, I'm a little bit disappointed by this. This is not as effective as I hoped it would be. I'm really pleased to see the shields replicated here from the original toy line. They're holographic, so you can choose between seeing Tony Stark or the Iron Man face. I really like this. This definitely takes me back to my childhood. Never made an awful lot of sense why these characters would be carrying these shields, but it was a cool little novelty nevertheless, and I'm glad to see it replicated here. Okay, so final thoughts from me. I'm going to give this figure 3 stars. I was really bummed out by those roller skates. They were just not as effective as I'd hoped. They look quite cheap looking and they don't quite work the way I was hoping they would. That being said, I do think that we get some really nice accessories. I'm glad they included the skates. I'm glad they included the shield and his gun weapon there. I think this is all very cool. I love the retro packaging. This is going to go on my wall and it's going to look pretty fun. And I think the action figure itself is pretty good. We've had many Iron Men across the years, so it's hard really to sing its praises over any of the others. There's not an awful lot that separates it, just some minor tweaks here and there. But if you don't own an Iron Man or a classic Iron Man, then this is certainly not a bad one to start with. Is it worth a double dip? Well, I think ultimately it's going to depend on how much you love the original Secret Wars and whether you want that packaging and some of these accessories. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving the video a like. That kind of thing really does help the channel out and it allows me to keep making more content. And if you're interested in seeing more content, remember to hit subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos coming soon.